Okay, here we go, guys. I know we're on the starting soon screen. We have just started streaming. So, for all of the listeners there in the chat already, welcome. I'm very glad that you all here. Over 200 people in the waiting room. Please comment below. Let me know if the audio and sound is okay. The audio and video is okay, sorry. So I'm looking out for your comments. Once you confirm that, we will jump ahead and Oleg will give a very nice introduction to us all. Audio is fine. Brilliant. That was a very quick reaction from you guys. You sound good. Thank you for the compliment. I know you're just talking about the quality, don't worry. Cool. Let's jump into it in three, two, one. Oleg, please take us away.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first ever live real-time sweat holders briefing. A lot of you have come forward and asked questions on the H1, how did it close, what were the news, and we decided that rather than kind of give information piecemeal in messages or kind of in individual calls, we will try this new format where we give you the kind of all the latest and greatest and an update. It will be in broadcast fashion. Potentially, we will change the format in the future. This is something that we would like to hear from you more on because this is, kind of our first attempt. What you will see is the kind of wide context on the Web3 and crypto world and how does it feed into our story. After that, you will hear from Michael Brink, who is our head of product, on the H1 roadmap. How did we do? What was delivered? If there is anything that is still lingering behind. After that, we were planning to have Sean Azam, our CFO, to present a few slides to you, but he is right now very active in France, participating and watching a lot of other physically active people. So unfortunately, his connection is not terribly good. So I will try to do my best to present slides that were originally Sean's. After that, we will go back to Michael, who will talk to you about our H2 roadmap. And we will close with Misha giving us an update on the latest stuff that is happening in marketing. One thing to bear in mind, guys, please take note of all the questions that pop up. At the very end, we will share with you a QR code and we will love to hear from you, your questions, comments, kind of anything that you want to share with us. And exactly 1 week from now, we will have a Twitter AMA where all of us are going to be back. You hopefully will pop in and we will answer questions that you'll ask us in the meantime, or we will take any question that you will have live in that session. So there will be no live conversation at the end of this one, but in a week time, after you digest everything, after you go through the slides that we'll present, we will come back and we will, kind of answer any questions that you might have. So big picture. Ashton, can we go into the next slide? We are in an infrastructure bubble. The more time I spend going to conferences and talking to people, the clearer it becomes that we are in a very, very interesting moment of Web3 crypto world development. We have more than 1,000 chains, L1s, L2s, L3, L64s in existence. And you wouldn't believe how many of these chains are writing to us and say, why wouldn't Sweat Economy move to our chain? Or people writing to us and kind of going, wow, you have so much users, you have such a scale, why don't you build your own chain? And this is clearly sending a signal to us that we have way too many chains, especially if you start looking at the number of dApps, decentralized apps that are in existence. We looked at the list of dApps that have more than 1,000 users, which is, by any stretch of imagination, is not huge scale. And we realized that there are less than 600 of these dApps in existence. So we have 1,000 or more railways or rails in existence, And we have only 600 carriages running on that, which would make 0.6 carriage per railway company. As you can see, we have an incredible overproduction and overinvestment into building railways, and very, very little in a way of actually consumer propositions and products that end users use. Interestingly, that we've seen this picture before. If you look at the internet before year 2000, that was exactly the same picture. Most of the investment in the internet was going into building out infrastructure. After year 2000, the switch flipped, and all of a sudden, all the money went into consumer internet, and it gave us Google and it gave us Facebook. Very similar picture was in TV. You know, at the beginning of TV revolution, towers were built, cables were laid, new TV sets, first black and white, then color were created. Ultimately, right now, there is very little investment in that infrastructure, and everything is happening in consumer content. Radio, same story. And even if you go all the way back to Industrial Revolution, the story is the same. First, there is a lot of investment in the infrastructure, and after that, it flips, and it flips towards consumer product, which is, I guess, a hint of what's coming. What's coming next, Ashton, is, of course, consumer crypto. What does it mean? That means that capital allocators and founders are going to be spending a lot more time building products for end users, building products that appeal not to 1,000 users, not 10,000 users, not 100,000, not even million or 10 million or 100 million. There will be founders that will be building for billion plus people like us. That's exactly what we are building. And because this story has happened plenty of time, it's not a question of if, it is only a question of when. Is it 6 months or 12 months? It's anyone's guess, but the penny is rapidly dropping. And the more I talk to capital allocators, the more I realize that there is an awareness that this massive shift from infrastructure investment towards consumer crypto is already afoot. Not everyone realized it, but consider it an alpha or a big trend that still has not been exploited by everybody on the market. Now, why is it important for us? Why is it important for Sweat Economy? Why is this important for you? Ashton? It is because Sweat, the token that is backed by the value of your physical activity, is uniquely mass market asset, and Sweat Wallet as well. Why is that? Well, because it is universally accessible action. Everyone can put one foot in front of another, and everyone in the world knows that their physical activity has value. And they intuitively understand that sweat is valuable. The only question is how much? And this is exactly the question that we're here to answer for you and drive the value up as well. Typical tokens are only talking about utility. We are, and you as a community who is engaged into Sweat, are in a unique position that we have both. We have an intuitive understanding why Sweat has value, because it is backed by the value of your physical activity, and it has utility and is constantly gaining utility. And we will be talking a lot about what projects and features and products we have in plans in order to continue increasing this utility so that we achieve our goal. Ashton? And our goal is to make your movement valuable. And at the moment, the market values active day, and that's the unit that we are using, internally, because it is really easy to understand. Active day is 10,000 steps. Everyone knows 10,000 steps. Everyone aims to walk 10,000 steps. And if you look at the current Sweat price and the minting difficulty of just about 6,000 steps per Sweat, it means that the value of an active day right now on the market is approximately or just above $1 US cent. And what we've also learned is that it is ludicrous under evaluation of the actual value of sweat. When we asked more than 150,000 of you to come up with estimate what is the value of 10,000 steps, you came back with us with the estimate, Ashton, of $6.20, which is approximately 600x increase versus where we are right now. It's a tall order. It is a big gap to close, but this is exactly the goal of us, the project, the team that is present here, but also everybody else who is working extremely hard to bring it into reality. How we are closing this gap and how we will continue working on closing this gap, I would like to hand over to Mike Brink, who is the head of product, and he'll talk to you about the results of H1.
Thank you, Oleg. Ashton, you can go to the next slide for us, please. Let's talk about what we're doing on the ground to close the gap. Let's talk about the carriages we're building to run on these railways. That's a fantastic image to articulate that. We're in the second half of the year, and I'm bringing you this view right from the trenches. Up until June, I was one of 3 product managers leading 3 teams that are building this roadmap that we disclosed at the start of the year. And we've hit some really nice goals. And a bit of a spoiler alert, a lot of what we'll quickly go through in the first half of the year has been foundational for a really compelling story and picture that we'd like to disclose to you all on this call, and for those watching the recording afterwards. And we're going to get there a little bit later in the second half of the presentation. What have we achieved? What have we not achieved, and why? A couple of the big ticket items: sweat as gas, the ability to cover your own gas fees on near using your feet, using sweat, was released in the first quarter of the year. Oleg has just alluded to this value of an active day research. More on that from Misha in a bit. One of the most used features actually rewards, prize draws in Sweat Wallet. And we've expanded that. Exciting news is that it's starting to be rolled out this week. And that's the ability to buy digital products using your sweat. So cracking open that rewards part of the app. Best in Web3 onboarding. We know, admittedly so, that registering, downloading, logging into Sweat Wallet is not the most gratifying experience. And so we have used a sophisticated piece of technology, which we call magic keys, to make that a lot simpler, better, and faster. Multi-language. At the start of the year, we were only supporting 1, maybe 2 languages. We're now increased it to Spanish, French, Portuguese, Japanese, and Brazilian. So that's 6 languages, including English, obviously. The facelift, making the homepage a lot more interactive, based on some feedback that we got from the community as well. Trade, we've seen our trade volumes increase. That is not just users arbitrarily finding the trade button. That is improvements to closing the gap on unfulfilled orders and getting that trade fulfillment rate up. And finally, we introduced the first GameFi experience completely on-chain in the form of Sweat Trivia. So there's 3 little elephants in the room. I'll start at the bottom. Portfolio. There is some exciting news coming on Portfolio. Suffice to say, we've started to build it now. It's a bit delayed because really the whole point of Portfolio was to provide an asset-first aggregated view of multiple assets across multiple chains. And we've been a little bit delayed with a multi-chain implementation. Sweat AI, we simply made some substitutes. We prioritize some other things, and that will be released in Q3 at the end of next month. And then finally, Sweat Pay. Let me just dwell on this one a little bit longer. We know you want Sweat Pay. We want Sweat Pay. Everyone would want to spend their crypto in the Web2 world, whether it's buying caps or coffees or whatever the case may be. What makes this complicated is we need to partner up legally and operationally with a TradeFi partner. These are hard to come by. The good news is, after several conversations, we found a TradeFi partner that aligns with our vision, our use case, and our plan to scale how to spend Sweat or any cryptocurrency using a plastic card or a virtual card in our case. Things take a bit longer with financial institutions traditionally than what we're used to in the Web3 world. Bear with us. We will have, even if it's an alpha release, something by the second half of the year. So this was our roadmap that we put forward to you at the start of the year. But for those of you who have been around for a while and have participated in our on-chain votes through the Sweat DAO, we don't just come up with votes. You come up with proposals of things that you want to see or things that you realize would make your movement more valuable in having a token and a wallet that's more valuable. And if Ashton, if you go to the next slide, this is almost the thing I'm more excited to quickly run you over. These are features that you came up with and voted in favor of us making provision for. And we have. There are 4 things. The one is claiming your sweat, so giving you more control over your earned sweat. We've expanded that to, initially that was just your steps, and now it's everything that you earn. And you give a smart contract permission to cash out those earnings as often as you want. And we've aggregated into a single feature because it started becoming cumbersome to claim from all these different sources in the wallet. So thank you for that. Coupled to claiming in the spirit of token sustainability is evaporation. Okay, it's great that we know where and how to earn more sweat, but what about users that are not engaged or abandon the project or just something to keep users retained? And evaporating sweat does just that. Your sweat earned from steps starts evaporating after 30 days without claiming it. And I think it's been just over 27 million sweat that we've evaporated in the last couple of months. Yeah, and then on-ramps, we had MoonPay at the start of the year. We now have Ramp, on-ramper, Mercurio. We know that with MoonPay, the fulfillment rate was 13%, which is shocking. It's not good enough. It's just over 30% with these various options we now have, all with different licenses agreements in different territories. That's why we have a better rate. 30% is not good enough. And we have some sophisticated creative ideas to get that fulfillment rate a lot higher, to get everyone in the world across all 15 odd time zones that are using Sweat Wallet the ability to buy Sweat. And then finally, for the OGs on this call, the long-standing users, guys, some people have well over 100 jars. 100. Imagine trying to keep track of Sweat that unlocks. You're losing out. You're not compounding your earnings because a jar unlocked 3 days ago. And so this was an idea to say, can we automatically be prompted? And if you look at that image on the left of your screen, hey, you could be earning 2,400 Sweat right now from your principal amount that's just sitting dormant. Single action, refill all those jars and get that Sweat earning for you again. And that went live about a month and a half ago. So these were the 4 extra features. Also the reason why we didn't deliver on Sweat AI yet. And we're very excited for the foundation this has created for us going into the second half of the year. I told you I'll keep you in suspense. Let me stay honest to that and ask, I don't know if Sean or Ole can give us a bit of a token overview.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Let me try to do justice to numbers slides, but I hope that in the future, Sean will be able to cover that. Ashton, could you? Yeah. So, guys, the big headline message is it's been nearly 2 years since we launched in early September 2022, and we have covered a lot of ground. As you can see, in year 1, we had a lot more token emissions or supply than we were able to create demand or generate revenues. With team working extremely hard, over the last 12 months, the picture has significantly changed, and we now have a balance between supply of tokens or emissions of tokens hitting the market versus demand and revenues that business generate. It is an extremely difficult kind of position to attain, and not a lot of projects in Web3 are talking about it, leave alone get there. And the reason why we do this is because we are building for long term. If you have great product and if you have great business model, you can always put an incredibly exciting marketing message and marketing narrative. If you don't have product and you don't have a business model, then you are in a world of narrative only. And at some point, if it's not backed by the product and by a sustainable business model, that narrative pops and everyone's crying. So we are slightly different in that respect. We're starting with a product and we're starting with a business model. And in order for us to get here, Ashton, can you hit us? Over the nearly 2 years of our existence, we have burned 1.85 billion sweat. All of these burns were the result of your votes. Thank you very much for being active. Thank you very much for participating and studying all of those proposals, because this had a very, very profound and significant impact on the tokenomics and on overall circulating supply. Next slide, Ashton, please. In first half of the year alone, we've burned 685 million sweat, and this excludes the July this year, which is the first month of H2, but we will come back to that in a second. If there is one thing that you take out from this presentation on the token, it is the next slide. We have achieved an absolutely incredible position in Web3 world, where each new user that comes into Sweat Wallet and engages with Sweat improves overall token economics of the project. Ashton, can you click? So basically, when user comes in, they're starting to earn Sweat, predominantly by walking. And this is what typically creates a lot of anxiety in the market with move to earn projects, because everyone is thinking, oh my God, people are going to come, they're going to walk, there will be a lot of tokens, that's going to dilute the price, that's going to, that's going to kill the project. People walk, Sweat is getting earned, and it is hitting the market. And not only steps, you can also earn some bonuses from Treasury for playing our games, for doing quests, etc. But what's very, very important is, Ashton, that each and single of these users is actually generating more revenues or puts more sweat into their jars than is emitted to them. This is akin to a positive unit economics. So people come in, they earn, they learn the ropes, they start to enjoy the product, they earn their cents and their dollars, and they're realizing how the whole thing works, and they engage. And we generate more revenue in sweat or more state sweat than we are emitting per user. And that's not all, Ashton. In addition to this revenue in sweat, we're actually generating revenue in other tokens and in fiat, which gives us, all in all, an extremely positive economic position, Ashton, per user. And that means that if we grow right now, and if we add million, 5 million, 10 million, the more users are joining Sweat Wallet and joining our community and the ecosystem, the healthier the overall token economics is going to become. And this is extremely exciting, as you can imagine, position to be in, because scale does mean better everything, better product, better community, and better business model for you and for us. So on this note, I'll give a word back to Michael, who's going to talk about this half of the year, and we'll explain to you how we're going to be driving scale and improving token economics through product.
Great, thanks, Oleg. Ashton, let's go to the second half of the year. All right, so I'm going to change switch gears a little bit with the second half of the year. I would love to chat to you about what you're seeing on screen here. These are some really interesting sounding features and adding more links in our carriages. But it would take really long. And as Alex said at the start of this stream, we will be here, same time, next week. I don't know if I can say same place, same link, different link, but same time, where we would welcome any questions on some of these features, and maybe we'll have some time to unpack them. What I would like to do is leave you with something of a one-liner of what you should be walking away with for the big play of the second half of the year. That a lot of planning and provision and building in H1 has set us up for. And Ashton, if you go to the next slide there, I'd like to introduce this as one wallet, one key, one token. When I was planning that, I thought the pause would have more effect, but we already have a wallet, we already have a key, and we have a token. So why is this significant? Why am I skipping an entire roadmap worth of conversation to hang on this page? Bear with me for a couple of minutes. We are building a multi-chain wallet, which means we are providing an asset-first portfolio view in your wallet. Doesn't any wallet have assets? Aren't there wallets that provide multi-chain? So, the same asset, but existing on different chains? Sure, but not in a way that is asset-centric. And what I mean by that is if you look at any other dApp right now, if you're on a so-called multi-chain dApp, you would actually have to switch networks from ETH mainnet to Matic to Arbitrum to whichever network you're on to see and interact with the tokens or the assets held on that chain. What we're proposing to do is have one asset class aggregated by all the chains that it exists on inside Sweat Wallet. Of course, for those of you that are thinking ahead, you can immediately see the problem this imposes. And that's that, well, for this to work, it would mean that you still need a key pair for each of those assets, or rather the chains for where those assets are stored. I mentioned magic keys. What we're proposing to do is abstract that key functionality and give you control of those assets with a single key pair. The key pair that you have today, that's bound to your address in Sweat Wallet. And we are already doing this. For those of you who noticed the solo onboarding or the best-in-class Web3 onboarding, we are abstracting that key pair even further to something easy and understood, like an email address. But for users who are more particular about control or about privacy, they can opt to use the passphrase route for the single key that manages assets across multiple chains. Okay, so we're going somewhere. Assets on multiple chains, all held in a single portfolio view, managed by a single key, regardless of what chain they're on. Goodness, I guess the only problem left is that I would need to manage my assets quite well, because I would still have to pay the gas fee in the native token of the chain that's performing some transaction broadcast if I transfer that asset. Well, this is the cherry on the cake, guys. You've used Sweat as gas. You've seen that component on your screen on the right-hand side. Imagine you could pay your gas fees for any asset that you're moving on any chain using Sweat. And that's what we're expanding Sweat as gas to become a universal asset that powers everything in the wallet. And as that picture alludes, imagine you were sending half an ETH to a friend, and the gas fee at that point in time is 0.003 ETH. You could pay that at Sweat. And here's the kicker. We are going to subsidize those fees in various gamified ways to make it even more enticing to use your feet to pay for that gas fee. One wallet, one key, one token. One wallet to store your assets, one key to control your assets, one token to power everything. And this story, this one-liner, is underpinned by control, access, and security, and providing you with what the wallet of the future should look like. And the reason I've picked these three things from our H2 roadmap is because these are three of the big hitters in us being good on our promise to deliver what we've promised to do, and that's making your movement more valuable. So please come back next week and ask us about all the other things that we're also building in addition to one wallet, one key, one token. This is the exciting part, and we're working hard to get there. We have some exciting news still to share with you in the rest of this presentation. Let me ask my colleague Misha to take us to the next slide.
Thank you very much, Mike. Ashton, if you can move over. As Mike was just alluding to, chain abstraction that we're working with Near on is making movement universal by tapping into more chains and more crypto communities in Web3, expanding our user base and expanding our reach. But if we go back to the beginning of today's presentation and essentially our mission of why we are here, why we do what we do, why the passion that is literally burning on a daily basis in this organization, in this community, is because we understand that movement has inherent value. But the question is, how much in actual US dollars terms? And in order to create a public discourse around the value of movement in our mission to build out the movement economy, and of course, to speak to policymakers, health insurers, healthcare providers, and media alike about the value of movement, we needed to explore the economic value of an active day. That is 10,000 steps. So what we started doing in the beginning of this year, we went out with an RFP, request for proposals, from universities and research institutions around the world to explore exactly how much movement is actually valued at. We said that we need three estimates from each one: individual, industry, and governmental. And as you can see, we made official partnerships with leading researchers in public health, sports, and economics from University of Birmingham. We have Dr. Mark Elliott and Dr. Dene Arroyos Calvera, University of Cadiz, Dr. Borja, and he partnered up with Caledonian University of Glasgow's Professor Chasteen. And we also have a Hamburg-based think tank in Blockchain Research Lab. The results of the research that I'm holding right here is nothing short of astonishing, with estimates varying heavily depending on the approach and methods used, anything from healthcare cost savings for governments, something called QALY, Q-A-L-Y, essentially standing for Quality Adjusted Life Year. Essentially, how many years of your life you add by staying physically active, and thereby how much value you actually produce. Things that perhaps we haven't really thought about in quantifying based on actual data. Think of productivity at the workplace and how much employers save by having a healthy employee basis, mobility and infrastructure savings, and the methods go on and on and on. And honestly, I would love to tell you the results right now, but unfortunately, I cannot reveal anything because the exact numbers that the experts actually reached we'll be announcing around the time of our heavily anticipated side event that we're organizing together with none other than Web3's most prominent media outlet, Cointelegraph, at the world's largest crypto and blockchain conference, namely Token 2049 in Singapore this September. We are working heavily now with our PR agency to make sure that a lot of publicity goes around this reveal, of course, because no one has really gone into this territory in neither academia or in policy. Like, what is the actual economic value of movement? So the research reports are also, of course, ongoing peer review as we speak, and will be published in reputable medical and academic journals as well. The next step for us following the reveal will be a phase 2 of this research, a lot bigger scope, more metadata analysis, and also using our sweat data in terms of the step count to actually verify and prove that our methods and our software and our value proposition actually works. We do make people more physically active, and we do ensure that people stay and sustainably stay active over longer periods of time. So if we then move on to the next slide, Ashton. One of our partners, University of Cadiz and Glasgow, actually came up with an idea. Like, but why don't we just ask for a crowdsource wisdom? Do you guys have perhaps some millions of users to ask? And of course, we came up with this fantastic proposition, and together with the research partners in Cadiz and Glasgow, we make sure that it's academically sound. And we asked you, more actually to be exact, more than 157,000 estimates came in from our crowdsourcing DAO event, which of course became the world's largest crowdsource of wisdom made on a blockchain. And as Oleg was alluding to in the beginning, the median value that came out of that crowdsource was $6.20. Interestingly, without revealing too much, there are some research that might be indicating somewhat similar numbers, but we're not going to go too deep into that. What was fascinating, though, was to see the fervor and the enthusiasm and positivity around that. You know, the fact that the community throughout different forums were talking about this, questioning the varying of numbers was quite astonishing to see. But we will be revealing something quite amazing in Singapore. And bringing on to that, then, Ashton, if you go to the next slide. So some real-time alpha. This morning, we actually received the last research report from University of Birmingham, the most prominent university that we're working with, of course. And that means that our team is right now going over and working on getting the median estimate that we will then announce at Token 2049 in Singapore, together with the winner of 100,000 sweat for the DAO member that was closest in his or her estimate in the DAO vote. So stay tuned. There is so much happening on the front of research in the value of movement. And speaking of which, I think Oleg has got some alpha for you as well.
Thank you very much, Misha. One thing that I wanted to add to what Misha said, on the 17th of September, we will also announce the winner of 100,000 sweat, which is going to be won by somebody whose estimate is going to be the closest to the consensus number that will come out of all of these three reports that we are going through right now. So, you know, it's going to be a very, very significant prize and reward. And we're very much looking forward to some attention from you guys if you participated in this crowdsourcing. But the point that I wanted to make is today is the last day of July, and the team has gone slightly ahead of schedule. And I would like to announce that literally now in real time, the team is burning 100.7 million sweat. This is in addition to the numbers that we announced before. And I would like to ask Vasya if you already have those transactions, maybe to share them with Ashton so that he can post them into our social media so that all of you can confirm and verify the accuracy of this statement. But it just happened as we were kind of going through these slides. And last, but probably most exciting, is back to you, Mike, with the
third and final piece of alpha. Sure. So there's been a vote that closed a couple of weeks ago about expanding the minting curve when plain English, your ability to earn sweat from your steps. For those of you who are new to Sweat Wallet and listening in, and maybe never even took part up until very, very recently into the range, basically you minted sweat on your first 5,000 steps, 0 to 5,000. The proposal was that we'd like to add more value to active people. People that are walking should get more out of it, essentially, and be incentivized to walk even more past the threshold, at least to the point of an active day. And as Oleg said, we've defined an active day as 10,000 steps. And so about 19 minutes ago, we've just enabled the result of that vote. About 154,000 users voted in favor of this change to increase that window to start minting sweat from 3,000 to 10,000 steps. And for premium users who mint up to 6,000 steps originally, you can now mint sweat for up to 20,000 steps. Effectively, in that case, more than doubling your potential daily earnings of sweat. If you refresh your app, not Sweat Wallet, Sweat Coin, because that's obviously the step tracker, that will now be in effect for everyone. So go out for an evening stroll or morning, depending on where you're listening in from, and start increasing your earnings.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys. Last point to make on what Mike just said, and the result of this change in minting window should be active people are earning more, and overall token emissions are projected to fall by about 30%, further helping us to reduce the emissions of the token and further improving overall token economics. So closing on this. Now, Ashton, please, let's get a last slide. You know we listen, you know that we're active in kind of all the different community channels, be it Twitter, be it Telegram, be it Discord. Come in, ask questions. If there is anything that is not clear here, or you'd like to make a comment, or tell us what you liked about this format and what not, and how we should change it going forward, please scan this QR code. This is a form that we would welcome if you kind of fill out before our AMA next week, or pencil in the same time next week. We will be sending out on all channels the link to the Twitter AMA, where you'll be able to ask more kind of detailed questions. And as Michael said, we will be able to go through all the different elements of H2 roadmap, should you desire to do so. Thank you very much. Anything else from anyone? Misha, Mike, Ashton?
Just want to say a massive thank you to everybody who joined. It's an exciting time. We are positioned at an amazing place in the market to capitalize exactly on what Oleg has been alluding to and speaking to in the beginning of this presentation, where infrastructure bubble is about to pop and consumer crypto is about to boom. And we, as the capturing of the movement and the value of movement, is exactly there at the forefront to make sure that we are not just one of the dApps that will succeed, but the billion people dApp.
Thank you very much, and see you all next week.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.